Who is the greatest England Test cricket captain of all time?
Jardine?
Yeah?
I mean, it was a fun series. I don't know if he goes down as the greatest of all time.
Oh, I mean, he did have to combat the greatest cricketer of all time, didn't he? In home conditions.
Greatest England captain or greatest Ashes captain?
No, greatest England cricket captain, Test captain. So Douglas Jardine for combating, you know, the impossible, essentially, and that was the.
Are we talking about somebody that was just a great captain, or in longevity, or short space of time, or big series? Because, you know, Vaughan captained that team that won, that beat the team, probably the best, arguably I think the best team that's ever played the game of cricket in Australia. I look at Strauss, who's on that book there, and go, well, he won home and away Ashes, and his team won in India.
That was Cook's, wasn't it?
I think Cook
Was
has
it
got
Cook's?
it.
Cook was captain in India, but his team went on to win to be number one team in the world.
Yeah.
In a tough era too.
In a really in a tough era, a strong era.
Yeah, like South Africa were around, right?
Strong era.
Yeah, they were unbeaten overseas for.
Brearley, who took, you know, Brearley, who basically captained Beefy to, you know, win home and away.
Okay, so we got Jardine
Brearley didn't win away. Brearley didn't win away.
Brearley.
Gatting won away, but he only won a couple of test matches.
Hasn't Vic Marks just written a book on all this?
I don't know.
I think he has.
I think he's written something about Test captains.
Yeah, I think he's written something about
What about Nasser?
If you ask this question...
What about Nasser? Because, you know, you've named a Brearley with a Botham, a Vaughan with a Harmy.
A Flintoff.
Yeah. Well, the whole of that.
I'm just giving,
I'm
giving one to you.
I was there, yeah.
A Jardine with a Larwood.
Yeah.
Nasser came in, a side that was ranked number 9 in the world.
Yeah.
But then he had central contracts and Duncan Fletcher.
Yeah. A lot of people will look down their nose. A lot of people look down their nose at Nasser.
Is that a
little joke?
Yeah. Yeah. You started it with a swing. But like
he's my favourite captain.
Me and Flintoff sat here and talked about it, and Fred wasn't as warm to Nasser. I love Nasser. I love playing for Nasser. I think Michael Vaughan's era needed Nasser's era, where Fred would argue we didn't. But I think if you looked at what Nasser brought through and the identification along with Duncan, you know, it was a long way down the road when that 2005 team won. There was a hell of a lot were blooded by his tough love, shall we say. So I'll always have Nasser in there because I think.
So you would say that Nasser Hussain is England's greatest ever captain?
I would say.
Actually,
I would say he's one.
Test,
I don't think he said he was the greatest.
I would say he's one of. I would say he's one of. Ben's about to be the greatest ever Test captain if in Sydney he lifts the Ashes. I think that question is gone.
I made that argument a year ago, didn't I?
He wins.
I thought we'd done this one.
No, we haven't done that one because we're not talking about what ifs. Okay. We're talking as things stand. Actually, I'm going to take out the word test. I'm going to say who is England's greatest ever captain because you've got to have Owen Morgan in there, don't you?
Owen Morgan, definitely.
Again, to take a team they did in 2015 and 4 years later win, albeit one again that suddenly had Ben Stokes in it, Jason Roy.
There is,
Johnny Bairstow.
There is an argument that he started picking all the good players, isn't it?
But he shaped that. He took a punt with that. I mean, Morgan took a punt with that. That was a massive punt.
I'm going
There's
to
about
get you
4
to
or
name
5
one
players.
at the end of this, by the way.
There's 4 or 5 players who, without Owen Morgan, probably wouldn't have had anywhere near the career that they would have had.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
without doubt.
Ben would have come through. I think Johnny would have come through. I'm not sure Jason would have. I'm not sure Jason would have got to the levels he got to.
I'm not sure Moeen Ali would have played as much.
Moeen Ali playing as much. Adil Rashid.
Butler would have played, but would he have got the backing to play?
No.
The way he did?
So I think Morgan, if you go all-round captain.
Plunkett wouldn't have had that career.
No. All-round captain, I think you have to. I think Owen Morgan has to be. Yeah.
He got the best out of Johnny Bairstow.
Strauss got the best out of Anderson and Broad. Going into Cook.
Strauss also got a tune out of
I don't know if
KP.
Strauss got the best out of Anderson and Broad.
Yeah, I think he
the
did.
best of Anderson and Broad is after he's.
Yeah, but that's where they've got to. But you've got to start somewhere. And I think where I argue Nasser with Vaughan's team, the Vaughan's team's got to start somewhere, and Nasser is the one that started that process going.
So there's also and you mentioned it a little bit before, but I call it the streak war parallax, right? So in the 90s, you have Heath Streak captaining Zimbabwe and Steve Waugh captaining Australia.
Yeah.
And I didn't think Heath Streak was that bad a captain, but Zimbabwe obviously didn't win a lot of games. And Steve Waugh, as we might have said in a previous show today, just put 5 slips in for hours on end until someone nicked off to Glenn McGrath. So there is an element of like, you're remembered for how good your team is rather than actually how good you are as a captain. So there have probably been lots of very good, interesting captains that England have had.
Raymond Illingworth?
Yeah, I mean, that whole period's really, really interesting.
Graham Gooch started the professionalism.
Well, I reckon that twice, in the 60s and in the 80s, they started picking wicket-keepers who could bat rather than, or batters who could keep rather than keepers who could. So they were ahead of the game on that sort of stuff a couple of times, right? That would have been largely captaincy-led. So I think there's probably a few things that they've done before. But it's interesting that I don't know, maybe, I've always thought that because Australia just picked the best batter as the captain, they've actually ended up with better legacies because someone will end up being captain for like 8 to 10 years.
For longer,
Yeah, whereas England doesn't have that because, you look at someone like Vaughan. Vaughan was a late player to international cricket. Was great during his peak, and the minute his peak finished, his batting just completely dropped off.
Vaughan's body let him down.
But that's quite common, right? You get to 31, 32, and your athleticism falls apart.
But even before that, his knee.
Yeah, and his back part.
Once his knee started playing up, his technique was.
No, I agree. But what I mean is, if you're
if
you're an Australian captain and that happens, you've probably already been captain for 7, 8 years, right? Whereas he wasn't even in the team for 7 or 8 years.
And same as Strauss. Strauss got the captaincy.
Both of them had a similar kind of thing. Whereas Australia just going, who's the best batter who's between the age of 24 and 26, will give them the captaincy, means that you get these legacies. Whereas England has these tiny little captaincy pockets, right? You don't get many Graham Smith, Alan Border.
Well, it's not the English way, is it?
Not the English way, no.
Well,
and that's what I mean. And a lot of it is to do with, as I said, it's the way that you pick your captains is so different than some other countries.
A lot of this chat over the last sort of hour has been, it's like you talk about what's the hardest, winning away or winning at home. Yeah. What's the difference between English players playing in this format and that format? It's like England win the Ashes, Australia want to play with a Duke's ball. If England lose the Ashes, England want to be playing with in county cricket we start playing with a Kookaburra ball.
Yeah.
England lose the Ashes, the captain gets sacked, the coach gets sacked, and we move through the cycle. So something I mentioned Graham Gooch. Something like Graham Gooch was the one. I've just watched a podcast with Alan Lamb and Gladstone Small on. And they're talking about the stories that they're telling of the off-field stuff. Gucci was probably one of the first ones to come in and go, right, the level of professionalism. And he fell out with them all. He fell out with them all. But this is the level of professionalism from 1990 onwards. Maybe he's a little bit later, 90 onwards. And that then came into Michael Atherton taking over, Alex Stewart, central contract.
Into Nasser,
so was that the start?
So that's what I find interesting. You're talking about that, whereas what all those guys did is what Border did. But he did it in one long reign, when you're actually talking about 4 different guys who came in over a period. So it's very hard to compare, whereas it's very easy with some other countries of like working out who their best captains are, right? Whereas I don't think it's as straightforward in England because people don't have long reigns, and they... the whole thing of setting up the contract system and pushing for all that and making sure we field and run between wickets correctly. England players weren't fielding or running between the wickets correctly, right? Like all that all comes out of that whole, Atherton making those comments and then Nasser and Fletcher and everyone else. And so
I think that started with Gooch.
Yeah, you're probably right. It probably is.
His was the level of his level of professionalism.
And it doesn't pay off until Vaughan, right? And it's if you look at Border's captaincy, what he captains from the early 1980s until 1994.
But I've had the conversation with David Boone, and David Boone was talking about Alan Border, who's like, these 3 or 4 men were going with me, and we will go on a long journey. The rest some of them will drop off, but if they don't come with us, then Booney was one of them. Steve Waugh, I think, was another one he took. He took a bit of a gamble on as a young player.
He had a few of them, right? But my point is that he sticks around throughout the entire thing, so he gets seen as the genius, right? Whereas if Gooch doesn't do what he does, if Athens doesn't, do you know what I mean? So there's something different about the way that it kind of works in England, where it doesn't. I don't think it's as easy to work out exactly who these legends are because you don't have an Alan Border or a Graham Smith.
There is another aspect to this, which I think makes it more difficult to call, and that is that there was more competition in international cricket, or rather the playing field was more even up until uber professionalism broadcast, when broadcasts really kicked in, and Australia, England, and India really moved ahead of the rest of just because of the financial backing.
Once the money mattered, yeah.
Exactly. So you'd say that captaining hasn't become easier, but certainly there's less teams that you need your team to be better than. It's less even playing field. So if you factor that in, and if you were to say that, I love watching Gooch bat, but it's a push to say he's the greatest England captain ever, right? Somewhere. Michael Atherton isn't. Alex Stewart isn't. David Gower, who preceded Graham Gooch, Mike Gatting actually preceded Graham Gooch, and David Gower before him. Both of them had a disastrous reign. Brearley, so then you've got Brearley's in there. Now Brearley is that thinking person, right? Yeah. That thinking man. But he still had Bob Willis and Ian Botham in his side. But at that time, there were a lot of other good players in other teams. But then, of course, England weren't winning against West Indies.
Also, didn't they have success against Australia when the Packer players weren't there?
Yeah.
So it's harder to...
It is, yeah. So they won Ashes.
Also...
But they were against arguably the worst Australian side in 50 years.
Can I say this? Because it's one of the few times you get this in cricket, where you have 3 people in English cricket who all have working class backgrounds. But I wonder if Brearley even plays for England if he came from where he came from. Or
no chance.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because he averaged, 28 with the bat or whatever?
Yeah.
So it would have been people who had been brought up like Brearley, writing about Brearley. I'd love to go back. I'm not saying he wasn't a genius captain, because there's some great things. You ever heard the one he did with Alan Lamb, where he put the helmets at cover and to try and get Lamb to play cover drives against the off-spin? So clearly he thought about cricket differently. Yeah. I'm not disagreeing with that. But also, if we are talking about the greatest captain, what about what he did with the bat? Does that play a part in that?
I think so. But in Ashes cricket, he averaged late 30s in Ashes cricket. I think Brearley.
Yeah, but we're not just talking Ashes.
We're
talking
cricket. But Ashes cricket.
But then Ashes wins do bring with them.
Yeah, of course.
So who is it then?
It's a really good question. It's.
I think it could be. I think it's about to be Stokes.
No.
So if they lose this series, is it still Stokes?
No,
because I don't think it is.
No, it isn't.
No.
So is it Morgan?
Oh, if it's all captains, then it's Morgan.
But then
without a shadow of a doubt.
But Morgan still had ridiculous riches. I mean, Jofra Archer literally walked into that team in 2019. Do they win the World Cup without Jofra Archer? And you can't give. I give him lots of credit. I'm not sure I can give him too much credit for Jofra Archer.
I think you're right. The 2023 World Cup, they don't win without Jofra, but they probably should have won 2016. There wasn't a T20 World Cup for 5 years, right?
Yeah,
and they probably would have won 1 or 2 in that period.
Yeah,
they should have won the one in UAE when everyone got injured and went home.
Yeah.
They won the next one. I know that was Butler. I think Morgan had gone on by then, right?
Yeah.
But they actually probably should have won 3 or 4 titles in that time. The fact that they didn't was sort of a dumb luck, I would argue, as much as anything. And they lost the Champions Trophy as well, that they should have won.
I would go as far as to say Strauss. Ashes home. Ashes away.
We've been talking for 13 minutes.
Ashes home, Ashes away, and won, and became world best team in the world during a time when cricket was strong. Cricket was strong.
But
2009, 10, 11.
You are right.
Cricket
and they
world
did win.
Was strong.
They did win in Australia.
Won in Australia.
Without a McGrath or Warne type bowler, but he did have in his ranks, and this is a defensive-minded view of cricket from Strauss. Strauss, 20 Test centuries. Cook, 30 Test centuries. Trott was fantastic. KP, Pryor, Bell. I mean, there is more. Swan, but that top 6, you've got over 100 Test centuries.
Yeah,
and you've got Anderson,
and
Broad.
Swan.
But then as a captain, it's a different. You have to manage them a different way. It's not like Alan Border going right. I'm in charge for the next 10 years.
That team picked itself every week.
It did, but
the only decision you had to make was whether you picked Bresnan
but
or.
That brings its different
a settled team.
Different complications.
No, I agree, but at a certain point,
I like the number one in the world though.
This is why I don't like talking about captaincy, because it is basically nonsense.
Yeah,
and you know I hate it because it is nonsense.
But that's why I like the Nassers.
Yeah,
because I think the Nassers of this world, and the Borders.
Yeah,
I think those two are quite similar.
Yeah, very grumpy.
Very, very grumpy, and they dragged an underwhelming side.
They took a bunch of young players,
professionalised, right?
And built.
See, it's so hard. Rohit Sharma's become a player again for India this week, right? And you look at Rohit Sharma and you're like, what an incredible player, but and should have won the 2023 World Cup. I still don't know how they lost that. They won the Champions Trophy.
They bottled it.
Yeah, they won the Champions Trophy and the T20 right after that, right? So we know that they had a really good team. But like MS Dhoni was a pretty good captain. What would MS Dhoni have been like as a captain if he had Jasprit Bumrah in his side, right? Like he would have used him like a nuclear weapon. So it's such a silly question, and also what we think of. We're talking about mostly. This is why I like the idea of the Nasser and the border type of thing, because most people only notice fielding position changes, and it's like that is, and you would know more than anything. Ben Stokes moves the field all the time. Half the time he's just following where the last ball went. He's not a tactical genius. A guy played a lofted cover drive. He's got two fielders at short cover, right? Like it's so hard, and we get fixated on the wrong thing. And the truth is that there is no correct answer except for history.
Good stuff.